Do you want an amazing marriage? Are you ready to take your marriage to the next level? Then stick around for your Marriage Matters podcast with marriage coach Lynn. Let's put some fun and sizzle into your relationship.
Well, hello. Today's show is the third part of managing conflict, and we're going to be talking about self-soothing. Manage conflict is the fifth level of the sound relationship house. Theory has it that you will have a solid relationship if you adhere to these guidelines. You need trust and commitment as the pillars. We are moving up to the highest levels, and we are coming to the end. Yay! Once we complete the sound relationship house in 2 weeks, I will most likely refer to some of these levels in future episodes. I hope you can come to appreciate a basic understanding of the sound relationship house. Please incorporate the suggestions into your relationship if it resonates with you. Many couples get stuck with level 5, the managing conflict, the arguments, the disagreements, communicating at high levels. I will be doing a series on communication skills later this year. First, we want to finish the sound relationship house, and then we will do a series on husbands and fatherhood during May. I will co-host a few shows with my husband Bob. We definitely feel an urgent need to discuss the topic of husbands and fatherhood. If you can't picture what I'm talking about when I say the sound relationship house, please refer to the sound relationship house diagram on my website, marriagecoachlynn.com. When it comes to managing conflict, we've talked about accepting your partner's influence and dialoguing about problems. What happens when we dialogue about problems and we end up in an all-out battle or arguments that are intense and don't seem to go away? What do we do when our disagreements begin to dominate and cause chaos and upset? On today's show, we will talk about flooding and self-soothing. When I say self-soothing, I want to make two things clear. 1, especially for newlyweds and the newly married, you want to be very careful that you do not lean heavily on your spouse for everything, to be your best friend, your confidant, companion, to be your everything. You don't want to suffocate your spouse with your needs. This is very important. Many people get married and they have a lot of expectations for their spouse. We need to step back and develop the emotional maturity to be self-reliant as a strong point, not to take our brokenness, pass it on to our spouse, and expect that he or she be responsible to fix the brokenness. Number 2, another thing clear about self-soothing is I'm talking about individual efforts at self-soothing. Some newlyweds run the risk of getting depressed or worried when they encounter big disagreements or differing perspectives. They think their marriage is in danger at the hint of major arguments and differences. Don't worry, calm down and relax. What is going on is fear of losing your beloved. It is a faulty assessment of your relationship and based on unfounded fear. But it's common, it's understandable. I want to say it's understandable. Newly married women could run the risk of scaring the new groom away to his man cave if your man feels responsible for saving the damsel in distress. And most men do not appreciate the huge burden placed on their shoulders. What we need to do when things get heated is to have a cooling off period when we retreat from an argument separately and do self-soothing techniques. First, why do we find ourselves in need of self-soothing? What often happens in the heat of an argument is that we get flooded. Flooding is a term that refers to the feeling that comes over you where some of the following may occur. You might feel a rapid heart rate, fear of abandonment, fear of not being heard or valued. You have a sense that fight or flight or freeze in place. You feel attacked to the point of impulsivity. You feel like you want to turn away from your partner. You might want to shut down. You might not be reasonable, and you might say or do things that you will regret later. Humor, logic, and empathy are likely to be thrown out the window. You have an inability to listen and are digging in for yourself. You are in self-protective mode. All of these things are a signal that you should not continue a disagreement. What is interesting is that when we are focused on our pain and feeling of overwhelm, we often do not notice our partner's emotional state. Your partner might not notice the attempts to calm down. Remember the emphasis I put on love maps. That was the longest show I did last month, and it is the first level of the sound relationship house. Flooding is the time to take a time out. You are flooded during those times where discussions get too heated, where a partner is highly agitated or upset, when you prefer to keep your distance and avoid triggering your partner. You are flooded when an argument escalates to the point where you think or shout, "Why can't we talk more logically here?" Flooding can occur when you feel negativity coming out of nowhere, or if your partner makes too many unreasonable demands. If you continue to try to resolve your conflict, things will escalate and you are not likely to come to a fair, reasonable solution. You are on the path to a lose-lose situation. If one person wins and one loses, you both end up losing because the partner who lost and felt bulldozed over has just lost a little part of their autonomy and was not enthusiastic about the outcome. This is the time where you need to both agree to exit the conversation and go off separately to another room or to individual activities until you cool off a little. You need at least 20 to 30 minutes to do this. Leave the situation and go and regroup. Your body physiologically needs 20 minutes to calm down. Taking a time out helps you to think clearly, which is something you can't do in the heat of the battle when you are engaged in a conflict. You want to move from gridlock or domination to listening and dialogue. When you are regrouping, don't sit and analyze every aspect of the disagreement. Don't stack things up in your favor, ready to come back and pitch your case. Do you know how annoying that is to your partner? Dynamics in which an overbearing partner is on a mission to persuade, cajole, and manipulate situations in their favor are likely to have an extremely unhappy partner with contempt and a shutting down of communication. Practice self-soothing techniques. Maybe you'll go read, watch a program, organize something, do a hobby, go running, walking, or shopping, call a friend, watch a comedy, meditate, pray, do gentle stretching or breathing exercises or some yoga moves. You don't want to sulk. You do want to distract yourself a little or change things up a little by calming the body, mind, and emotions. We need to practice self-soothing as a way to maturity. We don't want to pout, demand, blame, have a pity party, get gloomy or grumpy for hours on end, or get in the car and speed away from home in anger. We don't want to soothe ourselves with possible methods that can lead to addiction or avoidance, such as alcohol, drugs, or food. We don't want to numb the pain. We want to take a time out, doing something that will clear our mind so that we can come back to the issue with a little more calm and control. Alcohol, drugs, taking your rage out on yourself or someone else, excessive eating, and other bad habits are not good choices. We also don't want to lean on our partner and be over needy. We don't want to be overly needy, like I said before. We need to learn to do more self-soothing. Self-soothing is not avoiding or dropping issues entirely, but a time to regroup and re-enter. This week, I want you to come up with some positive self-soothing techniques that you can do when you encounter conflict. Maybe write out a list for those of you who like to write out lists. For those of you who say that you have a perfect marriage and that you never have conflict, find some activities or methods you can do when you have stress, whether it's self-imposed stress or stress coming at you from the outside world. I'm wishing you a great week as you make your marriage great.